History Month you find
ridiculous?
Why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? Well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month.
He's known as the voice of God, the man whose mere presence turns ordinary words into absolute truth. For decades, Morgan Freeman has narrated our dreams, guided our stories, and lent quiet wisdom to the biggest moments on screen. But behind that unshakable velvet voice lies a story Hollywood never wanted you to hear. A man who waited 50 years, 5 brutal decades of rejection before his first Oscar nomination, who clawed his way out of extreme poverty in the segregated Deep South, where black children were taught their lives mattered less, who worked as a janitor, taxi driver, and fairground dancer, while younger actors with a fraction of his talent shot to stardom. And when success finally came, the price was devastating. A catastrophic car crash at 71 that destroyed his left hand forever. Chronic pain that follows him every single second of every day. Public accusations that tarnished an image built over 8 decades. And a family tragedy so horrific, his step-granddaughter stabbed dozens of times on a New York sidewalk that not even his legendary voice could narrate it without breaking. How does an invisible boy from the cotton fields become the voice that defines a generation? Why did it take half a century for the world to see what was always there? And what was the real cost of fame that arrived too late to stop the tragedies still coming? If Morgan Freeman's work has ever moved you, inspired you, or simply made you believe in the power of storytelling, smash that like button right now. Let's honor a man who gave everything to his craft. Morgan Freeman was born on June 1, 1937, in Memphis, Tennessee, but his real story begins in the dusty backroads and cotton fields of Charleston, Mississippi. The Deep South in the late 1930s wasn't just segregated, it was a daily battlefield. Jim Crow laws enforced separation with an iron fist. Black children entered through back doors, drank from separate fountains, and learned early that the world had already decided their worth. His father, Morgan Porterfield Freeman Sr., was a struggling barber. His mother, Mamie, Edna, worked as a teacher and cleaner, taking whatever jobs would feed the family. Money was so scarce that when Morgan was still a baby, his parents made the heartbreaking choice countless families faced during the Great Depression. They sent him to be raised by his paternal grandmother. Her home had no electricity, no running water, no luxuries, just survival. Years later, Morgan would say with raw honesty, "We were so poor we didn't even know we were poor. Everyone around us lived the same." Childhood meant picking cotton under a merciless sun for pennies, wearing clothes stitched from flour sacks, watching white children ride buses to good schools while black kids walked miles to crumbling classrooms with outdated books. Racism wasn't a concept, it was the shopkeeper who wouldn't look him in the eye, the cop who stopped him for walking on the wrong side of the street, the constant fear that one wrong glance could end in violence. You learn to keep your head down, he later admitted. You learn to survive by becoming invisible. But even in that invisibility, something powerful was awakening. At just 9 years old, Morgan landed the lead in a school play. The moment he stepped on that makeshift stage, everything changed. For the first time, he wasn't invisible, he wasn't poor, he wasn't just another black kid. He was seen, he was heard, he was powerful. The applause was small, just parents and teachers, but for Morgan, it was everything. "I fell in love with acting that day," he recalled decades later, "not for the attention, but because I finally felt like I mattered." Dreams don't pay bills. The family moved constantly, Mississippi to Chicago to Indiana and back, chasing any work they could find. Morgan bounced between schools, always the new kid, always the outsider. At Broad Street High School in Greenwood, he threw himself into the drama club while other boys played football or worked after-school jobs. One drama teacher saw what others missed. He pulled Morgan aside and said words that would echo for the rest of his life. "You have a gift. Don't waste it." It was the first time anyone told him he was capable of more than just surviving. But gifts don't pay rent. When Morgan graduated high school in 1955, Hollywood felt impossible. Black actors were still stuck playing servants and stereotypes. With no money and no connections, he did what so many young black men did. He joined the United States Air Force. Not out of passion, but necessity. He trained as a radar technician and hated every minute of it. "I thought the Air Force would give me discipline and direction," he later confessed. "Instead, it taught me exactly what I didn't want to be." Acting was the only thing that ever felt like freedom. In 1959, at age 22, he left the military with nothing but a duffel bag, a few dollars, and a dream everyone called impossible. He moved to Los Angeles. Hollywood in the late 50s was a cold shock. Auditions led nowhere. Casting directors saw a young black man with a southern accent and offered only the same tired roles: janitor, bellhop, criminal, background filler. After less than 2 years of constant rejection, he packed up and headed for New York City, the one place where black actors had even a slim chance on stage. New York was ruthless. Rent devoured every paycheck. Auditions were cutthroat. The roles that came were still humiliating: servants, slaves, nameless extras. To survive, Morgan took every job he could find. He danced in the chorus at the 1964 World's Fair. He worked as a transcript clerk. He drove a taxi through Manhattan's chaos, rehearsing monologues between fairs. He married Jeanette Adair Bradshaw in 1967. Together, they raised 4 children, his stepdaughter and 3 more. Suddenly, the dream wasn't just risky, it felt irresponsible. Still, he refused to quit. In 1967, he landed a spot in the all-black Broadway production of Hello, Dolly, starring Pearl Bailey. It wasn't a lead, but it was Broadway. Night after night, he studied Pearl's command of the stage. "She didn't need to shout to be heard," he remembered. "That's when I learned the quietest voice can be the loudest." By the 1970s, Morgan was in his mid-30s with almost nothing to show for 15 years of grinding. Depression hit hard. He questioned everything. Then came a lifeline, The Electric Company on PBS. From 1971 to 1977, he played Easy Reader, the cool character who made reading fun for kids. It paid the bills and gave him national exposure, but at 40 years old, he was still invisible to Hollywood. He refused to settle. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, he returned to the stage with Shakespearean intensity. Critics started noticing. In 1980, he originated the role of Hoke Colburn in the off-Broadway play Driving Miss Daisy. Then, in 1987, at age 50, he exploded in Street Smart as the dangerous pimp Fast Black. The performance was raw, volcanic, terrifying. When the 1988 Oscar nominations came out, Morgan Freeman's name was there for the first time, Best Supporting Actor. He didn't win, but the door had finally cracked open. 1989 became his year. Driving Miss Daisy hit the theaters with Morgan reprising Hoke opposite Jessica Tandy. The film was a phenomenon. He earned a Best Actor nomination. That same year, he delivered another unforgettable performance in Glory as Sergeant Major John Rollins. 2 Oscar nominations in 2 years. At 52, he was finally thriving, after most actors' prime years were already behind them. "I spent 30 years preparing for success that came when most people retire," he later said. "Part of me was grateful. Another part was angry it took so long." The 1990s turned Morgan Freeman into a cultural force. The Shawshank Redemption, 1994, his narration as Red became scripture. 7, 1995, the weary detective who gave the darkness dignity. Amistad, 1997, quiet fury and moral weight. Then, in 2004, Million Dollar Baby, as Eddie Scrap Iron Dupree, Morgan narrated heartbreak so beautifully it became bearable. At 67, he finally won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. His speech was short, humble, and cracking with emotion. I want to thank everybody and anybody who ever had anything to do with the making of this picture. No grandstanding, just gratitude from a man who had waited a lifetime. The roles kept coming. Lucius Fox in the Dark Knight trilogy, Nelson Mandela in Invictus, God in Bruce Alunti. His voice became the one directors called when they needed the audience to believe every word. By the late 2000s, his net worth soared past $250 million. He owned a 124-acre ranch back in Mississippi, the same state that once tried to break him. He flew his own plane. He chose only the projects that moved him. It looked like the happily ever after, but fate still had one more cruel chapter. August 3, 2008, a dark rural highway in Mississippi, the same backroads where he once picked cotton as a boy. At 71, Morgan was driving his friend Damaris Meyer's 1997 Nissan Maxima when the car veered off the road, flipped multiple times, and crashed into a ditch. He was airlifted to the hospital with a shattered left arm, broken elbow, and severe shoulder damage. His left hand was